And that Bitcoin rally gives air and oxygen to the rest of the crypto revolution, which is still in its infancy, right? The Ethereum, platform, all Solana, all the other platforms who are really building block space to then build on top of. We haven't made that transition as a world yet. I'm sure he's going to be in a wrestling match with the Fed and the SEC on getting a money market fund tokenized. But if you get it tokenized and it gets approved, that's kind of like dollars in your pocket worth with interest.
Right.
I think what needs to happen is we need to use block space for things that make people's lives better. People woke up to the fact that the value proposition of Bitcoin, right, that it's really a report card on financial stewardship, right? It is a hard asset which really works in times of populism. That story resonated. It resonated with Larry Fink. He got orange pilled. It resonated with lots of people. And as long as we have governments, both here and abroad, that are spending more than they should, spending more than they tax, and creating some form of inflation. It's not always, CPI inflation. It's asset price inflation, right? The price of a house in America has doubled in 12 years. That's crazy. You're a young kid coming out of college, you want to buy a house. It's double what it was in 2012. And you're like, my salary's not double. And so pricing power gets eradicated, eviscerated in time with printing too much money. And I think that story worked. And that Bitcoin rally gives air and oxygen to the rest of the crypto revolution, which is still in its infancy, right? The Ethereum, platform, all Solana, all the other platforms who are really building block space to then build on top of. We haven't made that transition as a world yet, right? So Bitcoin as a macro asset, we get, it's a finished product. You don't need to do anything. But the second part of crypto, the fun part, the real revolutionary part, right? Decentralized stuff is just in its infancy. And so I would hope for my soul that I didn't spend the last, 10 years of my life and the next 10 years working on building this giant casino. I would hope that, we see more and more payments, that we see decentralized finance, we see decentralized ticketing and lots of stuff. But that's happening now. And this Bitcoin move gives oxygen and time for the rest of that stuff. And so for me, I'm really optimistic. Galaxy is kicking on all cylinders. We have a really good plan. Now we just got to execute. And executing is hard in a fast-moving world.
How impactful was it just to have BlackRock file for the ETF, to have him coming out and going on his roadshow?
Yeah, it was wonderfully impactful. And again, it's not just Larry at BlackRock. There's a whole team of people there that have been pushing way before he was a skeptic originally, and then he got orange pilled. And it was a group of people in the Bitcoin community that really worked on him. It was people in his own company, but he got there, most importantly. And I think he realizes, Bitcoin's a great asset, but BlackRock's a technology company. And if you see a future where lots of assets are in tokenized form and you are a technology financial company, right? Financial services company that really leads with their tech, right? They have very small margins. They manage trillions of dollars. You got to be in that game. And so what we have seen is lots of investment banks and commercial banks spending lots of time and money trying to figure out the tokenization game. And, Larry just made a big jump into it. And I think, they plan on being a big player. Listen, what you tokenize, right? If you tokenize a money market fund, that's pretty freaking cool, right? I'm sure he's going to be in a wrestling match with the Fed and the SEC on getting a money market fund tokenized. But if you get it tokenized and it gets approved, that's kind of like dollars in your pocket worth with interest. And so there's lots of things to figure out in this process, but it's great that the biggest player in the world is in the middle of it. Listen, I get all that plays into Bitcoin. And so, listen, can we have corrections? Of course we can. We went from 35,000 to 73,000, but it does feel like there is a bid somewhere below 55, 62, where I even saw the Japanese, I think it was Yucho, the Japanese post office said they're going to start looking into buying Bitcoin. I mean, that's the biggest pool of savings
Pension fund in the world. Yeah.
And so I think that the beast but the Kraken has been unleashed, and we just need to sit patiently. But I think that this populism story and Bitcoin being one hard asset, and a hard asset that young people like, right? Baby boomers in America have $80 trillion of American wealth, right? It's over half of wealth is owned by baby boomers. They're going to die. Maybe some will eat healthy and die older than normal, but they're all going to die. There's one certainty in life: you die. And that money is going to get transferred to a younger generation who is just much more comfortable with digital assets. And so we're even going to have this secular shift. And so there's so many reasons you should have something in your portfolio, right? And it's, again, you could make the same argument if you believed in populism and debasing the currency. Like, you should have equities because equities go higher when currencies do poorly. You should have real estate. You should have gold and silver. So, I wouldn't advocate to a 60-year-old, wealthy guy to put all his eggs in the crypto basket. And I always thought that was important because it legitimized it as an asset. Right? We did the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index, which never really took off like it was ahead of its time, but it was like, we're going to create the S&P for crypto. And so how do you legitimize this asset class? And that's done now. The process.
It's on the ticker of every financial news show now, right next to every stock and asset Forex. It's as legitimate an asset in the mind of certainly the media. I guess one of the questions has been, what happens if Bitcoin has one of its normal 30-40% drawdowns, even in a bull market? What happens to all those people that just decided to buy these ETFs?
I don't think those people, I think those are hodlers.
I agree.
You've just put 1%, you're not putting 10% in. So it's like buying a stock. You buy a stock, when you buy 1% of a stock, it goes down, 30%, you lose 30 basis points. You don't notice it as painfully, right? If you've got 10% of your net worth in and it goes down 30%, that's 3% of your net worth. If you got your whole net worth in, you want to jump out of a building. And so, listen, I say one thing and I behave in a separate way. I have a tremendous amount of net worth tied up in crypto and crypto assets.
Me too.
Partly because I decided to make this chapter of my life all about crypto and crypto assets, and partly because the third that's not tied up in crypto and crypto assets is still a pretty substantial sum of money, pretty safe and in pretty safe investments. And so I can afford to run the table, or to try to run the table. But if I didn't have that other money, I wouldn't have all my money in crypto.
Just to be clear, you just said you have 2/3 of your assets in crypto or something crypto adjacent.
Yeah, roughly.
Correct? Does that include Galaxy?
Yes. So there will certainly be volatility in this, right? There's not very many assets that just grow infinitely, and right now we've had one of the greatest runs of momentum. So Nvidia, meme stocks, crypto, it's all very correlated, and momentum has outperformed everything by the largest, percentage in standard deviation terms that it ever has. And so if you end up getting a real correction in Nvidia, I'm looking at the chart now, right? It's broken a little bit in the last 2 days. It would not surprise there'd be a correlation in the rest of the momentum stuff. And so you never know what creates what I call correlated risk unwinds, when every position in your portfolio goes to hell in a handbasket, right? That's usually an exogenous shock. It's usually something you don't see coming.
COVID.
But sometimes it's just the positions get too heavy. Right now in the S&P, We are the lowest daily range we've had in the last 6 years, and the second lowest since 1990.
I always sort of joke with the Bitcoin maximalists who, say that Bitcoin will become the global reserve currency. It'll be worth millions of dollars. And I'm like, I don't want to live in a world where that's the case because it's Mad Max.
Yes.
I've got my Bitcoin,
I said the same thing. Literally, I said, I go to bed every night and I pray that we have good stewardship of the economy, even though I know that'll hurt my Bitcoin position. Because I think Bitcoin can go up just because of adoption, but to see it explode usually will be because we're losing control of our debt. There are 35 countries, I think I got this right, that have had debt to GDP of 130. 34 have had to restructure their debt. We're at 125.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's us. What are we, 35?
we're at like 125 right now. But we're heading towards 200% of debt to GDP if we keep on this path. 250, I think, is the 2050 CBO prediction. It just doesn't. That dog don't hunt.
Yeah, and you talked about spending, and there's certain things obviously that the government needs to provide for their citizens, but we're at the point where the interest payments on that debt will dwarf all of those and may start to be more than all of those combined.
And it's quite frankly that, as you say that, that's one of the reasons Powell really wants to cut rates, right? Because
to save the treasury,
the Fed is burning money every year. He might look like a great central bank governor, but look at his P&L.
Yeah, I mean, monetary policy and fiscal policy are supposed to be untied, right? The Fed's mandate isn't to handle the national debt, but if we know that a meaningful percentage of that debt's going to have to be refinanced from 1 or 2% now to 4 or 5 or whatever the number is, it's only going to accelerate this problem. I just don't see how you stop this train without literal austerity. And if you talk about restructuring the debt, how do you do that when you're the global reserve currency?
Yeah, you don't. That's real trouble. Listen, we need a really tough president, tough Treasury Secretary to cut spending immensely, and we need to raise taxes. And no one wants to do that. We need to use block space for things that make people's lives better.
Yep.
And so we're seeing it in payments. There's a tremendous amount of cool stuff happening in payments abroad and here, but mostly abroad, right? I get a coffee and a taxi every day, and I just do the dee-dee with my phone. It works brilliantly. So we don't have this terrible need for payments for most of us in the United States, right? But abroad, right, people use Tether on Tron. It's become a payment system for half the world. We need people to be powered by Solana or powered by Ethereum, and not just our community speculating. Listen, I think for the next 3 to 5 years, the broad value of each of these ecosystems will be some variation of the way we look at Bitcoin. It's tell me a story and get me to believe in that story, and I'm going to participate and hold my wealth in this new magic internet money.